Hey everyone, welcome to Mental Health Bites with Dr. Judy. I'm Dr. Judy, and in this 10-minute podcast, we'll explore some timely topics related to psychology, answer one of your burning questions, and leave you with a timely mental health wellness tip so that you can improve your life every single day. Let's jump right into the timely topic of today. Today, we're diving into a fascinating topic that many of you have heard the buzz about, and that is dopamine. There's some misunderstandings about this important neurotransmitter, and I'm going to clear those up, tell you why it's important to have good balance levels of dopamine, as well as some non habit forming ways to boost your dopamine every single day. So, dopamine is that feel good neurotransmitter in our brain that plays a crucial role in our mood, motivation, and overall well being. A little bit about the science behind dopamine is that it's actually not just about the feel good experience. Dopamine is actually responsible for motivation and to get you to repeat an action that was of benefit to you in some way. That's a little known fact about dopamine. People don't realize that it's actually responsible for our motivation and to an extent our willpower as well. So, dopamine is a chemical messenger that neurons or nerve cells use to communicate with each other. Neurotransmitters in general are like tiny messengers that transmit signals across the synapses. These are the gaps between the neurons in your brain. When we talk about dopamine, we're talking about a particularly powerful messenger that plays a major role in our brain's reward and pleasure system. Dopamine is produced in several areas of the brain, but two key regions are the ventral tegmental area, called the VTA, and the substantia nigra. The VTA is located in the midbrain and it's involved in reward, motivation, as well as emotional expression. The substantia nigra is also located in the midbrain, and this plays a crucial role in movement and coordination. When dopamine is released in these regions, it creates a feeling of pleasure or satisfaction, which then motivates you or reinforces the behavior that led to that release. And this is actually the real reason why dopamine is often called the feel good neurotransmitter. But dopamine's role extends beyond just feeling good. It's also involved in functions like learning, attention, memory, and decision making. It helps us identify rewards and motivates us to seek them out. And this plays a crucial role in habits as well as the not so great side, which is addiction. So, for example, when we achieve a goal like finishing a task or eating a delicious meal, dopamine is released. This makes us feel good and it reinforces that behavior the next time. It encourages us to repeat it. But here's the kicker: dopamine doesn't just make us feel good, it also makes us want to feel good again. This is what causes us to seek out behaviors or activities that stimulate its release. And that's why dopamine can be a double edged sword. While it's vital for motivation and reward seeking behavior, it can also lead to compulsive behaviors or addiction when levels become unbalanced or when we seek to artificially boost it through unhealthy means like substance use or excessive social media use. So let's talk a little bit about how dopamine relates to our mood. Dopamine plays a fundamental role in mood regulation by affecting the brain's reward circuit. When dopamine levels are balanced, we feel motivated, energized, and content. And this is because dopamine directly influences areas of the brain like the prefrontal cortex. This is the part of the brain that is responsible for our higher order thinking, decision making, and regulating our emotions. When dopamine is released in the reward system, particularly in the nucleus accumbens, this is a core region of the brain's reward pathway, it creates feelings of pleasure and satisfaction. Dopamine also affects the amygdala, and this is the brain region that's involved in processing emotions. When we experience positive events, dopamine helps encode those events as rewarding, and this leads to positive emotional responses. Conversely, when dopamine levels are low, the ability to experience pleasure, a state known as anhedonia, becomes impaired. This lack of reward signals can lead to feelings of apathy, lack of motivation, and a decreased ability to experience joy in things that you used to find rewarding. This is a common symptom in several mental health conditions like depression. So let's talk about what happens when dopamine levels remain consistently low. Chronic low dopamine is associated with several mental health conditions. First, depression. One of the hallmark symptoms of depression is a persistent lack of pleasure or interest in activities, what I just referenced as anhedonia. And this is often tied to reduced dopamine activity in the brain's reward circuits. Second, anxiety disorders. While anxiety is often associated with serotonin, research has shown that low dopamine can also contribute to feelings of worry, fear, and tension, as well as difficulties with emotion regulation. Third, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. ADHD is characterized by symptoms such as difficulty maintaining focus, impulsivity, and hyperactivity. Studies suggest that these symptoms are partly due to low dopamine levels in the prefrontal cortex, which is that brain region responsible for attention, decision making, as well as impulse control. Fourth, Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's is a neurodegenerative disorder that's directly linked to the gradual loss of dopamine producing neurons in the substantia nigra. As dopamine levels decrease, people experience symptoms like tremors, stiffness, and difficulty with movement, as well as some cognitive and emotional symptoms. Fifth, substance use disorders. Low dopamine can also play a role in addiction. When someone uses substances like drugs or alcohol, dopamine levels spike, and that creates intense feelings of pleasure. Over time, the brain becomes accustomed to these artificially high dopamine levels, and your brain starts to regulate by producing less dopamine naturally, and that leads to a cycle of dependence. And finally, schizophrenia. In schizophrenia, dopamine levels are often out of balance, but in specific regions. Sometimes it can be too low in these regions, contributing to negative symptoms like the lack of motivation that we mentioned, social withdrawal, and reduced emotional expression that we also call blunted affect. So, as you can see, dopamine is much more than just a feel good chemical. It's a vital player in our brain's reward system, emotional regulation, and overall mental health. So, understanding how dopamine works and recognizing the signs of imbalance can help us to make good choices on how to support our mental well being naturally. Let's move on to the listener question of the day. Today's question comes from Jonathan, who asks, how does dopamine affect mental health? And what are some signs of low dopamine levels? This is a great question, Jonathan. Dopamine is intricately linked to our mental health, as we've already been discussing in this episode. For example, lower levels of dopamine are often associated with conditions like depression, anxiety, ADHD, and psychotic illnesses like schizophrenia. When dopamine is deficient, we may struggle with feelings of fatigue, lack of motivation, mood swings, or even a lack of pleasure in things we normally enjoy. You might notice signs of low dopamine if you're feeling consistently and chronically tired, unmotivated, or if you have difficulty focusing or experiencing joy on a regular basis. Of course, there could be other explanations too. So, if these feelings persist, it's a good idea to talk to your mental health professional. The good news is that there are natural ways to boost dopamine, like those we just talked about. Sometimes people need an additional boost through psychotropic medications that may or may not be right for you. Please do talk to your mental health professional. But the point is, there are a lot of different options to feel better. Thanks so much for that question, Jonathan. Let's move on to our actionable tip of the day. Today, we're going to talk about a simple but powerful strategy to naturally boost your dopamine levels, setting small, achievable goals. Why does this work? Well, whenever you accomplish a task, no matter how small, your brain actually releases dopamine. It's your brain's way of giving you a little pat on the back, saying, great job, keep going. This sense of accomplishment and reward can make you feel more motivated, happier, and ready to tackle the next challenge. It'll also increase your chances of achieving more goals successfully in the future. So, here are some step by step instructions. Step one, start small. The key here is to start with something manageable. So, for example, begin with a goal that you can achieve in just about 5 or 10 minutes. It could be something as simple as making your bed, doing a quick stretching routine, drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning. The idea is to pick something that's easy to accomplish so you can feel that immediate sense of reward through a small dopamine boost. Step two, be specific. When you set your goal, make it specific. Instead of saying, I'll exercise today, say, I'll walk around the block for 10 minutes after lunch at 1 p.m. And write it down while you're at it, because this specificity gives your brain a clear target, making it easier to know when you've achieved it. Step three, celebrate your success. Once you've completed the task, take a moment to acknowledge your accomplishment. Give yourself a little cheer, a fist pump, or even just a mental note of well done. This positive reinforcement is crucial because it encourages your brain to keep seeking that rewarding feeling. Step four, gradually increase complexity. As you get into the habit of achieving these small goals, start to gradually increase their complexity or duration. So, for example, if your initial goal was to take a 5-minute walk, try extending it to 10 or 15 minutes. If you started with organizing one drawer, aim to organize an entire closet next. The gradual buildup keeps things interesting and continues to challenge your brain in a way that promotes sustained dopamine release. Step five, create a daily or weekly checklist. Consider creating a simple checklist of these small goals. This could be a note on your phone, a sticky note on your fridge, or even a dedicated journal. Each time you check off a task, your brain gets a dopamine boost. Plus, having a visual reminder helps keep you motivated and on track. Here are some examples of small goals. Physical health goals might include doing 5 minutes of stretching every morning, taking a 10-minute walk, or drinking 8 ounces of water right after waking up. Mental health goals might include writing down 3 things you're grateful for each day, one of my favorites, meditating for 5 minutes. You can access all kinds of guided meditations for free online, or practice deep breathing exercises for a couple of minutes. Productivity goals might include organizing your desk, responding to 10 emails, or decluttering a small space in your home. Social goals might include calling or texting a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, giving someone a genuine compliment, or simply smiling at a stranger. This is one of my favorites too. It always shocks me when somebody who is not known to me smiles at me. It makes me feel so good. And then it makes me want to smile at somebody else that I see next. And finally, self care goals. This might include reading a few pages of an inspirational book, taking a relaxing bath, or spending a few minutes in nature. So think about it. What is that small goal you can accomplish today? It can even be something as simple as choosing one healthy snack. Some dietary choices that might naturally help boost dopamine levels include foods rich in tyrosine like almonds, bananas, and avocados, and even sunlight exposure. There's a lot of research that shows that if you get a few minutes of sunlight in the morning, it will help to regulate your circadian rhythm, helps you have more energy throughout the day and sleep better at night, and it boosts your vitamin D, which increases dopamine production and therefore your feelings of happiness and joy. So I'd love to hear how this goes for you. Please let me know in my social media channels how this worked and if you feel that your dopamine levels are being boosted naturally. Thanks so much for tuning in to Mental Health Bites with me. If you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, there are plenty more videos where that came from. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and leave a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you might have. Also, feel free to share this video with your friends and family who might find it useful. Stay tuned for more great content, and as always, thank you for your support.